They always thought we were close. Two sisters, one room, one bedtime routine. But no one ever asked what happened after the lights went out. I was only 9 when it started. My sister Julie was 13, popular, charismatic. Everyone loved her. She had a loud laugh, shiny hair, and a way of making people feel like they belonged. Unless you were me. Our room looked perfect, matching beds, pink wallpaper, teddy bears lined up on the shelf. It was the kind of room people took pictures in. But no one stayed long enough to see the truth. At night, everything changed. Julie had friends over often, all girls, all a little older. They'd whisper, laugh, close the door, and then they'd look at me. "She's just the baby," Julie would say. "She'll do whatever we say." And I did. They made games out of fear. They'd tie my hands for fun, blindfold me, make me kneel. Sometimes they'd pour cold water on me. Sometimes it was hot tea. Sometimes they made me take off my clothes and stand there while they laughed. I didn't cry out loud. I knew better, because if I cried, it got worse. Julie had a special rule. No one will believe you. Not Mom, not Dad, not anyone. And I believed her, because she was right. People say siblings protect each other. But what happens when the person sharing your pillow is the one who breaks you? I tried to tell my mother once. Just once. It was a Saturday morning. I sat across from her at the kitchen table, hands in my lap, stomach still sore from the night before. She was reading the newspaper, sipping her coffee. I whispered, "Julie and her friends, they hurt me." She barely looked up. "What do you mean, hurt you? At night, when you're asleep?" Her brow furrowed, but not with concern, with inconvenience. "You girls always fight. It's part of growing up. Just ignore them if they're being mean." And that was it. My entire cry for help dismissed with a sip of coffee and the rustle of a newspaper page. I stopped talking after that to anyone. I still went to school. I still smiled in family photos. I still helped Mom with groceries. But something inside me went quiet. And when the lights turned off each night, I knew no one was coming. Not Mom, not Dad, not God. Julie got more creative. Sometimes she brought friends who were older. They drank from bottles wrapped in paper bags. They whispered in dark corners. They touched my hair, my arms, my skin, like I was some object, a doll they didn't want but couldn't stop playing with. I started writing things down. In a notebook I hid under the floorboard. I drew pictures of the girls, wrote down their names, wrote how many times I was hurt, where, how, what I wore. Not because I thought it would save me, but because I wanted proof that I hadn't made it up. The worst part wasn't the bruises. It was learning that people can look you in the eye and still not see you. I didn't have a plan, just socks, no shoes. It was November and cold. But I waited until the house went quiet. Julie's door clicked shut. Mom's TV went off. I counted until I reached 100, and I ran. I slipped out the back door, didn't even grab a coat. Just my notebook and the hope that somewhere out there, someone would care. I remembered an old lady down the street, Mrs. Langford. She once gave me a cookie at Halloween and told me I had kind eyes. I figured someone who noticed my eyes might notice my pain too. But her lights were off. Her porch dark. Curtains drawn. No answer. I stood there shivering, heart pounding louder than my feet had ever run. So I sat on the curb, notebook in my lap, trying to write through frozen fingers. A page tore. The wind blew half my drawings down the street. I let them go. Then came the headlights. A police cruiser slowed down. A man rolled down the window. "Shouldn't you be home, sweetheart?" I opened my mouth, but the words didn't come. I was afraid if I told him the truth, he'd drive me right back, and they'd know I talked. So I just nodded. "Got locked out, I lied." He offered to drive me back. I declined. "I'll wait till Mom wakes up," I said, and he drove off. That night, I slept behind a dumpster with my notebook pressed against my chest. And in the morning, I walked home. No one noticed I'd gone. No one ever mentioned it. Running didn't save me, but it taught me something. When no one believes you, you learn to protect yourself with silence. Even if it kills something inside you. Julie wasn't alone that night. I could tell from the extra laughter. The way shoes hit the floor in the hallway. The low, heavy voices I didn't recognize. They opened our door. Julie was smiling, but not her usual cruel smirk this time. It looked hollow, tense. There were 2 boys with her, older than her usual friends, maybe 17 or 18. I was 10. They stood by the doorway looking at me like I was something left behind, something they were free to touch. "That's her," one asked. Julie nodded, didn't say a word, just sat on her bed, lit a cigarette she must have stolen from Mom. The other girl, Melissa, closed the blinds. One of the boys picked up my doll. He asked, "Does she cry?" Julie laughed. "Not really." They all laughed. I was told not to move. Melissa tied my wrists with a scarf. One of the boys turned on loud music from a speaker, something dark with bass that rattled my chest. Then they came closer. Hands that didn't belong to family. Breath that smelled like beer. "Let's see how strong she really is," one whispered. "I won't describe everything, not because I forgot, but because some pain doesn't deserve words. All I can say is it was the first night I thought I might actually die, and no one would care. No one would even know. But something changed in me that night. Lying on the floor, body bruised, mind screaming, I stopped waiting to be saved. And I started planning, not for escape, but for justice. That night lit a fire inside me. A small one, but steady. I would survive. I would remember. And one day, I would speak. Even if my voice shook, I started noticing things. Which drawer Julie kept the cigarettes in. Which nights her friends drank too much. Where they hid the camera. Yes, the camera. I first saw it on a bookshelf, a small silver device pointed toward the bed. I thought it was broken, until I caught the blinking red light. They were recording. That night, while pretending to sleep, I watched Julie press buttons, laugh, say things like, "This one's for the collection." My stomach dropped. This wasn't just abuse. This was documentation. That's when I changed strategy. I no longer just wrote in my notebook. I mapped everything. Where each person stood. What they wore. What time the door closed. Who held the bottle. Who held the camera. I memorized the layout of our room the way others memorized poems. Because when the time came, I wanted my truth to be undeniable. Then one day, I made my first move. I waited until they left for school. Julie was careless that morning. She didn't lock her drawer. Inside the camera and 3 memory cards. I took one. Just one. Slipped it under the sole of my old shoe. I didn't even know how to watch it. I just knew I needed it. I hid it in the crawl space behind the washing machine inside a box labeled Christmas lights. No one checked there. And for the first time in weeks, I slept. Not peacefully, but with purpose. That tiny memory card was more than a piece of plastic. It was the beginning of my voice, the part no one could silence. Her name was Ms. Delaney, my English teacher. She wasn't like the others. She didn't just hand out worksheets and leave. She watched, listened. Once she caught me flinching when a boy slammed his locker shut. She pulled me aside. "Are you okay, sweetheart?" I froze. It had been so long since someone asked, and meant it. I didn't cry, didn't speak, but something in me cracked open. I said one word, "Home." She paused, gently. "Do you want to talk about it?" I shook my head, but before she let me go, she said, "When you're ready, I'm here." That night, I made a decision I would give her the memory card. I didn't know what she'd do, but if anyone was going to believe me, it had to be someone who already noticed I was breaking. I slipped it into an envelope, wrote for Miss Delaney, "Please watch alone," and left it inside her staff room mailbox before school started. My hands shook the entire time. The next day felt eternal. She didn't call me out of class, didn't look at me funny, didn't send a note. For a moment, I wondered if I'd made a mistake, if she thought I was lying, or worse, if she was too scared to get involved. Then, at the end of class, she passed me a note. It was small, folded into a perfect square. Inside, 4 words. "I believe you, always." I couldn't breathe. No one had ever said that to me. Sometimes it only takes one person to light the match when your world is made of shadows. Miss Delaney didn't just hear me, she saw me. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel invisible. Ms. Delaney kept her promise. She didn't call child services right away. She didn't confront Julie. Instead, she asked to speak with the principal first. She wanted to do it the right way. Mr. Callahan was the school principal, tall, stern, always smelled like aftershave and old coffee. He called me into his office 2 days later, smiled too much, offered me candy I didn't want. "Dorothy, we understand you've been having difficulties at home?" I froze. He opened a folder, the envelope I had written, but not the memory card. It was gone. "These are serious allegations," he said. "You do understand the damage rumors can cause, yes?" My stomach dropped. He didn't believe me. Or worse, he did, but didn't want trouble. I tried to speak. I told him about the camera, about the videos, about the nights. His smile faded. "Dorothy, you don't want to get your sister in trouble, do you?" I didn't answer. I just stood, walked out, and didn't look back. Later that day, Ms. Delaney found me behind the library, eyes swollen, fists clenched. I asked, "You gave him the card?" She nodded. "He promised he'd handle it gently." I laughed, bitter, broken. He threw it away. She didn't deny it, but her eyes said everything. It wasn't just the abuse that hurt. It was the silence, the indifference, the way grown-ups looked away because truth made them uncomfortable. I learned that day sometimes the ones who should help you are the ones most afraid to try. Julie knew, not how much I'd said, not who I told, but she knew something was off. She barged into our room one night, eyes wide, breathing hard. "What did you do, you little freak?" I didn't answer, but that was enough. She found the missing memory card, or rather she looked for it, pulled out drawers, tore open the closet, ripped my notebooks. I stayed silent, like I was made of stone. "You think anyone's gonna believe you?" she hissed. "You think you're special? You're just a toy. That's all you'll ever be." She slapped me, hard, but not out of rage, out of fear. Julie was scared, and that gave me power. She started watching me closer, locked the room when she left, took the camera with her, whispered to her friends when I passed by. But something had changed in me. I wasn't afraid of her anymore. I was afraid of being forgotten. That night, I made a new plan. I'd already lost the first piece of evidence, but I still had my mind. So I started memorizing everything again. Dates, names, times, bruises, blood, laughter, every sickening detail. And I drew drawings of faces, layouts of the room, even symbols from the shirts they wore. Because if I couldn't save the videos, I'd save the truth in ink. I hid the drawings in a hollow wall behind my bed, each paper rolled and wrapped in plastic, stacked like little scrolls of memory, waiting for the day someone would listen. Julie could destroy tapes, break bones, scare teachers, but she couldn't erase what I remembered. And every drawing I made was one step closer to the day I'd speak, and they'd believe me. There was a woman I met once, at the clinic, after Julie accidentally pushed me down the stairs. She sat beside me in the waiting room. No makeup, a scarf on her head. She looked tired, but kind. "Rough day?" she asked. I nodded. We didn't say much, but before she left, she handed me a napkin. "If you ever need help, I listen." On it, her name, a phone number, and the words, "You are not alone." I had kept that napkin in my sock drawer, hidden inside an old book. That night, I pulled it out again. I wrote her a letter 4 pages long. No fluff, no poetry, just truth. What Julie did, what her friends did, what our father never asked about, and what the school refused to see. I ended the letter with a single plea. Please don't turn away. I signed it, Dorothy, 13 years old, still alive. I mailed it the next day using quarters I'd saved from lunch. Then I waited. 1 day, 2, 5, a week, no answer. I started thinking maybe it was a fake number. Maybe she threw it away. Maybe I was still alone. Then one Tuesday night, the phone rang. I answered. A calm voice said, "Dorothy, you're not crazy. I read every word. I believe you." She didn't ask questions. She offered options. "Do you want me to call someone? Do you want to meet? Do you want me to just keep listening?" And I broke. Tears I didn't know I still had came rushing like a dam exploded. She didn't rush me. She didn't push. She stayed. She was a stranger. But she became the only adult who didn't treat my story like a problem to ignore. Sometimes the one who saves you isn't family or teacher or cop. It's a stranger who simply refuses to look away. It was raining that night. The kind of rain that drowns the sound of everything. Julie and her friends were downstairs laughing loud, drinking something they weren't allowed to have. I stayed in my room holding my drawings and the stranger's voice in my memory. "You're not crazy. I believe you." That voice kept me breathing, kept me calm when the door creaked open. Julie walked in, alone this time. She was drunk and angry. "So you've been writing letters now, huh? Who do you think is going to save you?" "You're nothing without us." I stayed still. For once, I didn't flinch. That made her furious. She lunged, but I was ready. I slipped under her arms, ran into the hallway and down the stairs. One of her friends tried to grab me. He fell, hard. I reached the kitchen and yanked open the junk drawer. My hands found the knife before my brain did. I didn't swing, didn't stab. I just held it. "Come near me again," I said, "and I'll scream so loud the whole block will know your names." They stopped. Julie stood at the top of the stairs. And for the first time, she looked scared. I ran, out the door, barefoot, into the street, rain soaking through my clothes, wind slicing through my skin. But I didn't stop running. Not until I reached the payphone at the gas station, half a mile away. I called the number. The woman's number. "It's me," I said. "I'm ready." 30 minutes later, headlights appeared. A police car. Then another. Then a woman stepped out of a van. It was her, the stranger. She didn't hug me, didn't ask for details. She just handed me a blanket and stood between me and the world. Some escapes don't look like movies. They look like trembling girls with kitchen knives. Like barefoot kids under cold rain. Like strangers who become shields. That night I didn't win. I survived, and sometimes that's more powerful than revenge. The shelter wasn't fancy. White walls, plain sheets, no curtains. But to me, it was paradise. Because for the first time in years, the door didn't have a lock on the outside. The bed creaked when I sat down. It was soft. Too soft. I didn't know how to rest in softness anymore. I curled up on the edge like I always did in my old room. But there were no footsteps. No whispering voices. No Julie. No pain waiting in the dark. I fell asleep and didn't wake up screaming. No nightmares. Just quiet. I woke to sunlight, actual sunlight, and I didn't panic. That morning, I looked in the mirror. My eyes were puffy. My lips were cracked. But I was still here. They gave me a journal. "Write whatever you want," the counselor said. I stared at the blank page for hours. Then I wrote 3 words. "I am alive." That was the beginning. Therapy came next. It was strange at first. I didn't know how to talk about what happened. Not out loud. Not like a story. Because it wasn't a story. It was my life. But slowly, I started piecing the puzzle. Julie wasn't a monster. She was a product of one. Our house had been sick for generations, and I was the one who escaped the infection. And I wasn't alone. The shelter had girls like me, some older, some younger, some who couldn't speak at all, some who couldn't stop screaming. But we all shared one thing. We survived things no one talks about, and we were still here. It may seem small to others, but that first night, in a real bed, in a room, without fear, that was the first time I believed that life could be more than just survival. It could be peace, it could be mine. Months passed. The shelter turned into a group home. I started school again, new uniform, new name on the attendance sheet. But healing doesn't mean forgetting. And one day the call came. "You'll need to testify." I was 14. Still thin, still flinching at loud noises. But stronger now. Not in muscle, in truth. The day I entered the courtroom, everything looked too big. The bench, the flags, the judge in black. But nothing felt heavier than her stare. Julie sat across the room. Not with her friends. Not with Dad. Alone. She didn't look angry. She looked embarrassed. She wouldn't meet my eyes, but I looked right at her. Because this time, I had nothing to hide. Then they asked me questions. Did your sister ever touch you without consent? Did her friends participate? Did anyone ever try to stop it? I answered, clearly, steadily. Not because I wasn't scared, but because I knew silence had once tried to kill me. I wouldn't let it win again. Then the defense attorney tried to twist my words. Isn't it possible you imagined some of it? You were very young, easily confused. Why didn't you run sooner? I didn't flinch. I said, because when you grow up in a house where no one listens, you start to believe pain is normal. Silence fell over the courtroom. Even Julie looked up, tears in her eyes. But not for me, for herself. The outcome, Julie was sentenced to 2 years in juvenile detention. Her friends' probation and mandatory counseling. It wasn't much, but it was something. It was an acknowledgement. What happened to me was real. That courtroom wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming my voice. The moment I walked out of there, I wasn't just a girl who survived. I was a young woman who spoke and was finally heard. After the trial, they moved me to a foster home in another town. New school, new streets, new name again. And for the first time in my life, no one there knew what had happened to me. I was just Dorothy. Not the damaged girl, not the sister of the abuser. Just a quiet girl who loved libraries, wrote in journals, and walked everywhere barefoot when she could. I started drawing again. At first faces, then hands, then whole bodies. But they all had one thing in common. They were reaching for something. Always reaching like I had done for years. I found a mentor, Mrs. Langdon, an art teacher who noticed I never looked people in the eye. She asked once, "What are you most afraid of drawing?" I said, "My sister's eyes." She said, "Then that's where your power is hiding." It took me 2 years to do it. But one day, I painted Julie's face, not as a monster, but as a broken teenager. And I painted myself beside her. Not as a victim, as someone who survived her. That painting won a local art show. The first time anyone clapped for me, not because I told a story of pain, but because I turned that pain into something beautiful. I got a scholarship to a small art college, packed my bags scared to death, but went anyway. For the first time, I lived in a place where no one raised their voice, where doors didn't slam in rage, where laughter didn't carry the sting of cruelty. And at night, I slept soundly. No more flinching, no more waiting. They say time heals, but it's not time that does it. It's courage. It's choosing to rebuild when everything you were built on was meant to collapse. I didn't just survive. I grew roots and began to bloom. It was a rainy afternoon. I had been invited to speak at a local youth center just to share my journey. I hesitated. Talking about it publicly wasn't easy, but something inside me said, "There's someone who needs to hear this." The room was small. 20 girls, maybe more. Some looked bored. Some scribbled in notebooks. But one girl sat in the very back. Hood pulled low, hands clenched. I knew that posture. I was that posture. I told my story, not the version for police reports. Not the one with legal details and timelines. But the true version, the ache of betrayal, the loneliness of silence, the miracle of still being alive. And when I looked up at the end, that girl, the one in the back, was crying. Not loudly, just tears. And when the room cleared, she stayed. She walked up to me slowly. Didn't say a word at first. Then she whispered, "It's happening to me too." I didn't ask who. I didn't press. I just held her hand and said, "Then today is the day it stops." We got her help, a counselor, a safe place to stay. And as she left with a caseworker, she looked back once, not in fear, but in something stronger, hope. That day, I made a decision. I would no longer hide my story. I would share it over and over again if it meant even one girl could escape sooner than I did. So I started speaking at more centers. I painted, I wrote, I listened. Because for everyone, Dorothy, there are hundreds still stuck in the attic, in the bedroom, in the silence. You don't need a microphone to change the world. You just need to tell the truth once and let it ripple. Her pain became my healing, and my healing became her beginning. I'm 71 now. My hands tremble when I pour tea. My steps are slow, deliberate, but my voice has never been stronger. Sometimes I sit by the window watching the street. Children laugh, couples argue, dogs bark at nothing. Life happens out there. But inside me, life finally happens here too. I still remember the nights I cried into a pillow, afraid of the next sound on the stairs, the scent of the room where it all happened, the flicker of Julie's silhouette, the whispers, the pain. But I remember now without fear. Memory is no longer my prison. It's just a page in my story. I forgave her, not because she asked, not because she changed, but because I didn't want to carry her cruelty as my burden anymore. Now I'm a grandmother, and my granddaughter Eva, she loves to paint, just like I did. One afternoon she asked, "Grandma, why do you always paint women with fire in their eyes?" I smiled. Because they've seen darkness, but they chose not to live there. And to you, yes you, if you're watching this, if you're hurting, if you're still stuck in that room, that silence, that fear, know this. You are not alone. Your pain is valid. Your voice matters. And most of all, you are allowed to leave. You are allowed to begin again. You are allowed to be free. This isn't just my story. It's the story of so many of us who were never meant to survive, but did. And now we speak, we remember, we rise. Because every time we tell our truth, we give someone else the courage to escape theirs. Thank you for listening to my story. This was Dorothy, and I am finally at peace. If this story touched your heart, please share it. You never know who might need to hear it today.